Thanks, David. Hi, everyone. My name's Jeff Smith. As David said, I've been the Labour MP for Manchester Withington since 2015. Prior to that, I was a councillor in Manchester for many years. My background is working in the music business, so as an event manager and for many years as a DJ, which is an unusual background for a politician. And when you're elected to Parliament, very often you come with individual interests from your previous experiences and things that drive you, things you want to make a difference on. And particularly if they're issues that don't get a lot of emphasis in the House of Commons. And I came with a particular interest in two things: mental health policy and drugs policy. The mental health interest came as a result of personal experience, particularly my family, but also my own personal experience. And I became involved in the all-party group on mental health, which I now chair. And I'm really pleased that in the 5 years since I was elected, there's been a much greater appreciation of the importance of the issue. I think a growing willingness amongst politicians to talk about mental health and to engage and to support stronger action for people with mental health issues. And it's not just politicians, it's footballers, members of the royal family, lots more people willing to talk about the issue, which is really great news. My interest in drugs policy probably came initially because of my previous profession and my previous social life, I guess. I spent a lot of time around people who used recreational drugs. And I experienced what many of us know, which is that most people use most drugs without problems most of the time. And I saw how young people are sometimes unnecessarily criminalised for using drugs, which doesn't help them and doesn't help society. So I was determined not to come to Parliament and go along with the narrative that drug use is always a bad thing. There are reasons why people use drugs. It can be a lot of fun, and it can be a rewarding personal experience. A very close friend of mine talks about her experience with ayahuasca as being the most profound experience of her life. And I've also started to learn about the positive possibilities around drug use for medical treatment, whether that's cannabis for a whole range of conditions, or, as we're going to hear about today, psychedelic drugs. And I learned even more, I guess, about how prohibition, our current drugs policy, fails everybody. So not just drug users, not just the law enforcement community, and not just wider society, but the consequences of our prohibitionish culture has an impact on science and on research, which is, as we're going to hear today, is hampered by the law. And so the only way to resolve many of the problems caused by our drug policy is to change the law, so political change. And unfortunately, many politicians have been very nervous about talking about the issue. So I began to talk about drug policy in Parliament, along with Crispin and a number of others. And I personally wanted to create a debate in the Labour Party because I think Labour should be leading the debate on this for various reasons. So along with my colleague Thangam Debonair, we set up an organisation for Labour Party supporters to talk about drug policy, with the Labour campaign for drug policy reform, aiming to kind of create a space for debate around drug policy and to start moving Labour to a position that's more evidence-based and emphasises harm reduction rather than criminalisation in our drug policy. So we've been having meetings around the country to produce evidence for an expert working group to produce an initial report to influence Labour Party policy in future. Since it was set up, we've had Brexit, we've had the general election, and now COVID-19. So it's been a very busy time. We've been very distracted, but we're making good progress. And I'm very optimistic about the possibility for real debate within the Labour Party in the future. As David said, I was also invited to be a trustee of drug science and very pleased to support the essential work that drug science does. And the reason I'm particularly pleased to be involved in today's launch is because it brings together the two interests that I came to Parliament with, drug policy and mental health policy. I'm no expert, I'm a layperson, but I've heard very powerful testimony, such as we've just heard from Guy and Keith, about how psychedelic medicine can help with mental health issues, and particularly with PTSD. And talking to experts in the field, it's clear there is very clear emerging evidence of the efficacy of psychedelics that we need to understand and we need to build on. And it's vital that we, in my view, that we allow that research to go ahead unhindered. And that's where politicians come in, because it's clear at the moment that we're the barrier, and that the current regulations around scheduling make research difficult. So it's not really possible to explore the full potential of psychedelic medicine under the current regulations, and the only way to change that is by convincing the government to effect change, which is why I'm here. And in order to do that, as politicians, we need strong arguments backed up by the kind of evidence that this project is seeking to develop. Because I think, particularly maybe around psychedelics, I think there's still, I suspect, amongst MPs, the perception that it's all a bit kind of hippy-dippy, which is why it's so important we need the testimony and the evidence that supports the need for more research. Because I'm convinced I've heard enough about the power of LSD, psilocybin, and plant medicines like ayahuasca that I'm strongly convinced there's real potential to use them to do good. And I'm hoping to play my part, along with the all-party group on drug reform, in convincing others. And that the publication of the roadmap that David referred to earlier might just be a window of opportunity. But we need help from the scientists, we need help from people in the field, which is why this project is so important, and I'm so pleased to be part of it today. Thank you.